for me, the mummy has always symbolized death. And I'm not exactly sure why, because the mummy itself is a symbol of life in the afterlife. Mummy tombs, for example, they were buried with their most favorite possessions, such as jewelry, perfumes, flowers, foods, their pets even. And this was also, they had something to go into the next life with. And I think perhaps my symbolization or imagery of mummy symbolizing death came from monster movies, probably the 1932, 1942 movies, the one with Boris Karloff in particular, with the whole Universal monsters, even though it's kind of like a love story. But I think also those stories came about because we often mistreated the mummies itself. I mean, when you look at the history of how we've treated mummies in the past couple hundred years, it's really tragic and unfortunate. So for example, about 500 to 200 years ago or so, we were actually using mummy parts of their bodies in medication. This happened because of like a translation error between some sort of flower and people thinking it meant mummy. So grave robbers would go into graves, they'd steal mummy parts, and they would crush it up, crumble it up, and use it in medication, pills and tonics and stuff. And that's, they eventually figured out the error, but still for hundreds of years, people were consuming mummy bits. And then later on, we had mummy unwrapping parties, right? So the rich and the wealthy and the elite, they'd acquire mummies and they'd go home to their mansions or whatever, and they'd have private parties, or sometimes these parties were public. It'd occur in the streets, and they'd invite like a newspaper reporter who would kind of, if you couldn't make it to that event, you could read all about it in the newspaper, and this would happen frequently. And I think from that came stories of where we had mummies getting revenge. It first happened in literature and then later on in film. The 1932 Boris Karloff movie wasn't really a revenge movie, I wouldn't say. It was more of like a love story. The Boris Karloff, the famous makeup of him in that scene is only like 3 minutes long, and the rest of the movie, he's not even in makeup for being the mummy. He's in his human form. But it was 1942 where we had this shuffling mummy. It was an actor named Tom Tyler. And the shuffle, his slow shuffle came about because he had severe arthritis. And it was this arthritis that kind of made him kind of walk slow. He was really seized up. In fact, 1942 was the film The Hand of the Mummy was shot that he was in. But in 1952, I believe he passed away at the age of 50 due to complications due to arthritis. That's how bad it was. But I think that imagery of the shuffling mummy, where nothing can stop him, bullets can't stop him. The only thing that can really stop him is fire. It's always like a one single just figure always coming at you. He's always like, for example, if I was driving, no matter how fast I drove, no matter where I drove to, if I looked in my rearview mirror, I would see that mummy. Maybe in my 20s, for example, I could barely notice him, But as I got my 30s and 40s, that mummy figure is catching up. He's getting bigger and bigger. In my middle age, he's, maybe taking up a quarter of my windshield. But maybe as I approach my senior years, he's taking up the whole thing.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I will take 3 junior bacon cheeseburgers, 3 liverwurst a la modes, and could I get a chocolate frosty for my dog? He just loves chocolate.
Of course.
Let's take a look at a few scenes from Scooby-Doo and a Mummy 2 to show why this episode is so great. Opening scene, right away, we'll start off with that. We get some darkness going on, a creepy building, nice pan over to the mystery machine, and then we get this building, Department of Archaeology. Even if you didn't know what archaeology was, we get the shot of the mummy. And kids are familiar with mummies, probably from horror movies, so we know. And this is Scooby-Doo, so we know something creepy is probably going to happen with that mummy. Plus, we learned he's the most feared leader of Egypt even, so adds to the creepiness. And with this scene, we get the professor talking about how old the mummy is, which is 3,000 years old. Daphne's a bit scared. I'm a bit scared. So the professor's point is like, this mummy is 3,000 years old. He's not going to do anything, but coming up. This next scene, we get a little more on the mummy's curse. And we're introduced to Dr. Najib. So Curse gets your ears perked right away. Even Freddy, he's like, what's going on here? Creepy. So yeah, we hear the mummy will turn you into stone. And just to talk briefly about curses, if you look back at ancient Egyptian history, there is no such thing as a mummy's curse. There never has been. When they translated hieroglyphics, there was just more of a no trespassing sign. And it could be like, hey, don't trespass here. Or you might, get in trouble with whatever the kind of law was back then. But nothing like you'll be turned into stone or you will die or whatever. There was nothing, any of that going on. That was more of a Hollywood thing or maybe an early literature thing. We might have got some curses in literature before the Hollywood movies. And I think that was just a reaction to people kind of wondering what they would do if they were in that mummy's position. Like, say if you were mummified and buried in a tomb 3,000 years ago, would you want to be dug up in the name of science? Probably not. Or you wouldn't want to be unwrapped in front of people at a party. It's kind of disrespectful. And I think the curse came about because of that. This is a fun scene because the professor tells the gang to go get sandwiches. Of course they do. Velma's not superstitious. And this legendary coin is just awesome.
It's part of an ancient mystery I haven't been able to solve yet. Well, could you solve how I can get a sandwich? I'm starving.
Classic Shaggy.
Run downtown and bring back some sandwiches. I'll buy. That's the deal, Professor. We'll be back in a jiff.
Just a fun scene. I just like it when the gang go get food. It just reminds me of being a teenager. I love this scene because while the gang are away, the professor is just seen reading. This is usually how they kind of open with someone disappearing. So we got a little bit of exposition before, I guess, to explain to kids who might not be aware of mummies and curses. That was happening. But yeah, this is cool. Professor's just reading up on something. We know who that is. And we know the gang's going to come back to this afterwards.
My word. What could have done that?
So yeah, now the gang are at the malt shop ordering their questionable food, I would say.
Here you are, kids.
Just a fun scene.
Hamburgers. And the sandwiches
We
will
got
come
Casey Kasem voicing the chef.
a la mode. That'll be $1.50. Here you are.
And this is cool. This just sets it up even a little bit more.
Well done.
Because now we know, like, that coin means something in this episode.
Piece is this.
And it's probably worth a lot more than those sandwiches. It's probably worth
Must have dropped it
a
in.
few $1,000s or more.
Come on, grab the sandwiches and let's go. Liverwurst and ice cream. What'll they think of next?
And I love that end scene where he's just, we get a little bit more time spent with the chef. You don't normally get that. That's kind of like lifted from the Flintstones. I used to do that all the time where, you'd move over to the bird acting as a needle for a record player and he'd like squawk, "It's a living," or the elephant showering someone, or actually it would be a woolly mammoth showering something. Just, they'd always go, "It's a living." That's kind of taken from that. I kind of miss that. I wish they'd bring that back into Scooby-Doo, or we saw a little bit more of that in Scooby-Doo. It's not even like a laugh out loud hilarious. It's just like classic wholesome humor that's just, I enjoy so much. Okay, so the gang are back at the Department of Archaeology, and we as an audience know the professor has already ran into the mummy. The mummy's loose, but the gang, we know, don't know this.
Professor, we're back.
Just
Hey, Professor, why are you sitting in the dark?
I'll get the
we know he's stoned too, but they can't see it yet.
Professor! Zoinks!
But they know about the curse.
Like he's turned into 14-karat stone. Stone?
There's only one person who could have done that.
The mummy!
Yep,
Mummy! Let's go check.
classic Fred. Let's go check.
Velma's right. The mummy's not in the case. It's gone. And like right out through that glass door.
So that glass door leads outside,
If he went out the door, how come the broken glass is on the inside?
but the broken glass should be on the outside.
Right, Velma. There's something strange going
Scooby-Doo made detectives out of us all when we were kids watching this, eh?
There's another mystery.
Made us notice things a little bit better.
And we're going to solve it. The first thing we better do is split up and search the school for clues. Like what kind of a clue? The mummy. What else?
Fred's a little bit, annoyed with Shaggy there. It's kind of different. But again, this is like an earlier episode. They're still kind of finding their beats, their way, their tropes, I guess, with Scooby-Doo. They're still developing the characters. I couldn't think of a good skit to really do for this episode because I couldn't find a good quality mummy costume. Everything kind of looked like someone was wearing pajamas, just torn up, shredded pajamas. So I decided to just make a mummy, not a mask, but a mummy kind of head out of a dollar store skull here. And how I'm doing this is I'm just using some liquid latex, a paintbrush, and some cotton balls. And I just kind of unravel the cotton balls, put a little liquid latex onto the skull, just as like a sticky binding agent. And then I put the cotton on, and then I go over the cotton with some liquid latex. A few words about liquid latex. This stuff stinks. It smells like either rotting fish or cat pee, like a cat box, that kitty litter or cat box. It stinks because it uses the chemical ammonia, and you're supposed to use it in a well-ventilated room. I thought my room was pretty well ventilated. I had the doors open. I had a fan going. It's like the size of a bathroom. I also had like an air purifier going, so I was hoping it was sucking in the fumes. But when I got to about a half hour into this project, and I didn't even have like the liquid latex bottle open, I just had a little poured into like a little cap for some protein powder, like a jug of protein powder cap. It stunk after about half an hour, and I had to leave the room. And then when I came back a half hour later, I was like, it stunk even worse. I'm like, how did I even manage to stick in this room for so long? So I just did like my first little bit here, and then later on I took it outside where I couldn't really film it. So I touched it up a little bit after this. Now, we're not making a real mummy here. To make a real mummy, that requires a lot more work. If you're afraid of or if you don't want to hear about the gruesome side of making mummies, I would advise you skip the rest of this little scene of me making a mummy, because we're going to get in some details here that are a little gruesome, I would say. So to make a mummy, the first thing the doctors or whatever who would make the mummy would do, I guess would be priests, Egyptian priests. They would remove the brain, but they wouldn't crack open the skull to remove your brain. They'd get a metal spike and they would bash it into your nose. This is after you've died, though. You wouldn't be alive. You'd be deceased. And they'd kind of liquefy your brain so it would come out your nostril. So yeah, they'd take the metal spike, put it up your nostril, and then they'd kind of pour whatever they could out. Whatever they couldn't get out, I guess they get like a hook, like a coat hanger type of hook, and they kind of fish around in your skull and just pull out anything else. And they did this because the brain rots pretty fast. And next thing they do, they'd kind of cut you open, and they'd remove your internal organs, so your heart, your lungs, your intestines, your stomach, kidneys, liver, all that stuff would come out of you, because that stuff rots too. It's full of bacteria, especially your digestive tract, right? It's just so much bacteria in there. And they'd put everything into jars where they preserve them. So your lungs would be in a glass jar, or maybe, I don't even know if it's glass. It'd be in some sort of vase, perhaps. And they preserve it by salting everything. So salt draws the water out of everything. And after everything was kind of removed from you, they might stuff you full of like flowers and stuff, or they might put other like fabric in you just so you didn't cave in. And they'd sew you back up, and then they would start the process of kind of curing your skin. And they did that again by salting you. They just put your skin into like a salt concoction, but this was like a special salt. It also had, I guess it was a base, not acidic salt. It had like a base to it. So it's sort of like making soap. To make soap, they use lye and ashes. And lye is very base oriented. So if you put water on lye, you are going to feel the burn even more. But if you squeeze lemon juice on lye, say you got some little lye on your hand, this chemical lye that's called lye, the acid would neutralize the lye and would stop burning. So what lye does to the skin, it kind of turns it into, or not skin, but the fats in your skin, it would turn it into like almost a soap. So it kind of solidify, plus with all the salt on your skin, it wouldn't rot as easily too, because all the moisture is out of your skin too. And bacteria just doesn't thrive in a salty environment. So yeah, quite gruesome, quite the process. After that, I guess they'd wrap you up and stick you usually in a container, within a container, within a container. So it's sort of like a Russian doll situation here. We have like 3 containers. And they'd probably have like big funeral services too and everything. But yeah, getting back to this, I'm just applying more and more layers. And you try and put the layers where you think there will be muscle. And I'm trying to align the cotton bits, like running in the direction where your actual muscles would. I'm not super scientific accurate here. By this point, I'm just like inhaling all this liquid latex fumes and just not, I wasn't getting a headache or my lungs weren't burning or anything, but it certainly stunk. It's a smell that is very, very strong. So if you do use this stuff, wear dirty clothes because you don't want to get this liquid latex on your clothes. It will not come out. I was wearing dirty clothes. Wear eye protection. I know if I'm working with something, no matter what it is, I'm bound to get it in my eyes. I'm not clumsy or anything, but I just always has a way of finding its way into my eyes. So I wore eye protection. And after that, you just let it dry out for a bit. And again, I touched it up a bit more. I added more and more layers after it dried. And from there, you can paint it. To do a paint, what you want to do is you want to use like a wash. So you want to get some black paint or whatever color you want to use. Water it down a bit. Rub it over the skull. Anything where the cotton isn't completely covered by the latex, it's going to soak up the paint a bit more. And you just keep doing that process until you kind of get the look you want. And that's all you really have to do to make a mummy. I wanted to actually do it on my skeleton. I have a Halloween skeleton that's like 5 feet tall, but I felt it was a little bit too short to be imposing. I want this mummy to be at least 6'5" because I'm 6 feet. So I wanted this thing to be taller than me. I thought it'd make a really cool project though. They don't really sell 6-foot skeletons. I couldn't find any. Everything I see is 5 feet. So I just left it alone for now. Plus, I don't know how much this thing is going to stink. So do I really want something that's, 5-6 feet tall, covered in this liquid latex to stink in my house? Probably not. This is enough. I'm not even going to display this in my room because I just don't like the smell of it just yet. And I have better masks behind me, but I thought it'd just be a fun project just to make this guy and just to show you how, what you can do with a little liquid latex and some cotton swabs. That is how you build a mummy. And now back to some more clips from Scooby-Doo and A Mummy 2. In this scene, Shaggy is obviously scared. He's made some armor for himself, and they're looking for the mummy. And Shaggy has found the mummy because he usually finds the monster first. And people say the mummy's not scary, but he just punched through a wooden door. I couldn't do that. I kicked down a door too. This mummy is strong. I wouldn't want this guy after me. That's a creepy scene. I love this scene because it's just like classic monster movie, Universal monster kind of walk. He's spooky, his eyes are glowing. He's growling. And the gang are hiding. They're in their costumes, disguised. We got more and more costumes as the series went on. And this is kind of like an earlier situation where they're just kind of modeling what's already there to begin with. And this is funny. This scene's funny just because of Velma's reaction. So they're getting cornered by the mummy. Dead end. Mummy's creeping up on them pretty slowly though. Like, they could probably, yeah, Velma's like, shoo, go away. Like it's a fly, pesky fly. Like, that's not going to get the mummy to go away, Velma, but it's really funny. And this scene is classic. If you hear someone go coin, coin, you know what Scooby-Doo episode is this from. Velma ain't no dummy.
Don't give it to him, Shaggy.
Scooby has failed to deal with the mummy and he's taken off. And now we got the mummy walking towards Velma and Shaggy. So we're a little bit spooked by the situation, but Scooby-Doo comes to the rescue. Creepy.
I guess we'll have to give him the old coin.
Velma's even given up now. But Scooby's figured it out. This scene is great. It reminds me of like the old 50s movies where maybe a couple are on a date. Even though Fred and Daphne aren't dating or anything, but just you'd get that in the old monster movies. They'd be in their car and they'd hear a noise and they'd go investigate with a flashlight. So they see some footprints. Big footprints.
Come on, let's follow.
Heavy footprints too. And yeah, creepy. Another stone figure.
Yeah, I thought he left hours ago.
Because he did say goodbye, right?
Not you?
Is he?
the stone.
Poor Dr. Najib. He must have met the mummy before he could leave.
I wonder if Shaggy and Velma met him yet.
Oh, they have. This next scene, we cut back to Shaggy and Velma and Scooby, and they're in the laboratory doing some stuff, and the mummy comes in, and Velma mixes some chemicals, and we get a cloud of smoke, but they accidentally leave Scooby in there. Poor Scooby. Missing.
Mr. Mummy, they're not here.
And Shaggy's mega upset, as I would be too. And then this next scene, we see Scooby's fate, and unfortunately, turned to stone.
Scooby, like wow. Too late. He's gone to that big boneyard in the sky.
I would love a stone Scooby.
Oh my, oh.
Life size. That'd be amazing.
Hungry face again.
But fortunately, Scooby's just locked in a shed. He digs his way out.
Turn to stone.
That's the great thing about pets too, or dogs. They mirror our emotions, right? If we're upset, they're upset. If we're happy, they're happy. They're just very empathetic, right? You know, they just... If we're stressed, they get stressed. So you always kind of have to be happy around your pets. If you're in a bit of a depressed mood, they usually cheer you up, and you know, you live longer too if you have pets. Another great shot with the two dogs, one real, one stone, just kind of mirroring each other's poses.
Let's go back to the professor's office. Maybe we can dig up some answers to this mystery.
Freddy digging up answers. Just love those earlier puns that Freddy used to throw out. I like it a lot better than hold the phone, you know? I like these classic ones better. We're coming up to the end of the episode, and Velma's starting to figure things out with research.
Here,
Old-fashioned research, reading some old stuff in a book.
the most feared ruler of ancient Egypt, but the richest. Right. And take a look at one of the pictures in that puzzle.
So Velma's already figured it out.
Wow, it's the same as the coin.
We get that scarab coin and the scarab on the statue. But the mummy over here is, oh, great shot. Probably my favorite in the episode.
Uh-oh. Big Bad and Bandaged is back.
And he looks mad.
Big, bad, and bandaged. Velma always has great lines. This is the last scene I'm going to show. So we get our chase scene. They go through the university. University's constructing a gymnasium. So there's a bit where there's like a power saw that chases them around, right? And then they fall in the water, through the floor, to the pool below in the gym. And then there's a lawnmower, and then they end up in a basketball court. So they've landed the mummy into a basketball net. Freddy's about to unmask him.
Now let's see who's really behind these bandages. Dr. Najib! So it was apparent that Dr. Najib knew this.
I always love these wrap-ups.
And after you kids left,
We've already figured it out. The gang's already figured it out.
but when I surprised him, he had to tie me up in the
But in case you haven't figured it out,
When he couldn't find the coin.
we get everyone telling you what happened.
But there's still one thing unsolved. What happened to the real mummy?
This is great too. I love how they end these with Scooby sometimes fooling everyone. We don't get enough of these scenes.
Well, gang, I guess that wraps up the mystery. And
What a great shot too. Fred's all proud. Scooby's all happy. What a perfect way to end an episode. To sum things up, Scooby-Doo and A Mummy 2 is a fantastic episode. I don't even think I could add or subtract anything to this episode to make it even better. It's just perfect how it is. Yet despite all that, it wouldn't even make my top 10 for this season. That just goes to show you how strong this season of Scooby-Doo Where Are You is. And I think a lot of people feel the same because this rarely makes people's top 10 in their rankings. And some people even put it near the bottom. And I don't know why, because it is a really good episode. I think some people who put it near the bottom, they complain the mummy isn't that sinister or menacing. And maybe it's just because the design it's not bad, but we've seen it before. It's not unique like the ghost clown or the green ghosts or the space kook, right? They have very unique designs. A mummy is kind of a mummy. You can't really change it. You know, it's just someone wrapped in bandages for the most part. And I think this mummy looks pretty cool. And there's some great scenes that demonstrate how strong the mummy is. And the chase scene is amazing. And the scene with Velma just going shoo shoo is cool. Scooby kind of doing his song and dance and his karate and his boxing with the mummy is amazing. But despite all that, yeah, this is still a great episode, but it just doesn't make even top 10, which is an unfortunate situation, because I think this one demands a little more attention. I think it's underappreciated, which is why I wanted to do an episode on it.
Sir, that will be $1.50, please.
Oh, sorry, yes. Hold on a sec. $1.50. Do you happen to take weird Egyptian coins as currency? Ah, I thought not. Anyway, until next time, stay spooky.